There you are, playing the PvP in your World War II shooter, and all of a sudden, you're a Nazi. You didn't ask for this. You didn't choose this.
How could this happen to me? I made my mistake.
Hello, I'm Just Stop. You might know that if you look at my channel name, but I'm gonna guess you didn't, you filthy casual. Enough about me though, I'm here to talk about Extra Credits. Extra Credits is most likely a familiar name as well, considering they've been around since 2011 and have amassed over 2 million subscribers. They're most known for their video essays about video games, Extra Credits, and history, Extra History. Personally speaking, I never watched Extra Credits often. I've seen enough of their videos to respect the effort put in and nice visual appeal. The channel has definitely made many well-made videos on a consistent basis. Despite this, with over 400 episodes of Extra Credits and counting, one coming out every week, not all videos are going to be winners of the argument or well-researched. An easy example I can bring up is the somewhat infamous loot box or microtransactions episode, in which they conclude loot boxes are necessary for AAA games, yet also compare loot boxes and $60 games to free mobile apps and mention studies they never link. That video still wasn't overly despised, mostly just split down the middle, but Extra Credits' most recent video got much more flack and will most likely go down as one of, if not their most controversial video. It's called Stop Normalizing Nazis, Socially Conscious Game Design. And well, it was incredibly bad, as you might be able to tell from the title. As far as I'm aware, in the past, Extra Credits never came across as having the belief set of the social justice warrior or politically correct type. At best on Twitter, I found one of the artists saying they didn't care because they expect this response from a political video. They love getting rid of the bigoted subscribers and dislike their still engagement. Is anyone else getting deja vu? I can remember Jello Apocalypse saying the exact same thing after he got backlash for Vote. In fact, the entire situation reminds me of the time Jello made a bad, politically charged video about topics that were badly researched. The pieces align a little too well. Extra Credits has even lost a similar amount of subs so far. Never mind, it's me from editing. They've lost over 3 times what Jello did so far, so that shows how much worse the scenario is. The best way for me to show the inherent large issues with the video is to analyze it thoroughly, so let's just get into it.
There you are, playing the PvP in your World War II shooter, and all of a sudden, you're a Nazi. You didn't ask for this. You didn't choose this. Yet there it is. And it's treated no differently than playing a British soldier.
From the start of the video, the narrator gives an insight as to the mindset of the rest of the video and why it's obviously false. Thinking about it, for you to have picked up a game, a piece of media with a detailed description on the back to inform you what is available to perform with said game, gone home, played the game, and then got outraged at randomly being spawned in as a Nazi and saying you had never been informed is kinda idiotic. Firstly, many games are set during the time period of World War II, you know, the war of the Nazis, and even if it doesn't specifically say you'll either be a Nazi or part of the Allied forces in multiplayer, considering the two main sides in the conflict of the actual war, it would be expected. No one is forced to play as a Nazi without choice. They are told on the back of the box and in the tutorials the main mechanics of the game and what you'll be getting into. Game developers make sure everyone knows exactly what they'll play and how it'll happen. Secondly, Nazis are not glorified in first-person shooters. Anyone who knows the connotations with the Nazis will know they aren't the good guy. Also, Nazis are usually the focus of first-person shooter games containing them, so even if the player somehow doesn't know about the Nazis, they'll be able to get the idea through the story mode. Thirdly, World War I and II shooters are M-rated, meaning they are meant to be played by adults who know what a Nazi is. If for whatever reason, you as an adult get offended simply at the concept of playing a Nazi when the two sides are American and Nazi, you have terrible logic as to what multiplayer would be like for a first-person shooter World War II game. Wouldn't it be even more strange if both sides fighting in a World War II game were on the same side? That'd definitely cause some confusion, wouldn't it?
And we should never express that there's no meaningful difference between Nazis and Allied soldiers, or that they're functionally interchangeable.
Oh yes, I almost forgot, because in all other media, Nazis are glorified and at every turn are called the heroes of the 1940s. Clearly, this game's audaciousness of not specifically saying how incredibly terrible the Nazi is will give children who shouldn't be playing games if they can't distinguish a Nazi from an Allied soldier the wrong idea of a Nazi. Oh, the horror! You see what I'm getting at here?
In that multiplayer shooter, when it switched you to the German side, did it go out of its way to tell you that the person you're playing was pressed into service under threat of their life? Yeah, that's a big ol' nope.
Yep, because the thing you want most in a fast-paced shooter multiplayer you can easily go in and out of is a detailed 2-minute explanation as to why the character you're playing as was forced into their position and they didn't want to do this every time you boot up a match.
Oh, and on a similar note, let's please stop forcing people to play as terrorists as well. There you are, playing your modern shooter, and all of a sudden you're a terrorist. You didn't ask for this, you didn't choose this, and yet second verse, same as the first. There it is. I mean, that's literally the name of your side in the game. We can do better than this.
I refer you to my past argument in saying being a terrorist is usually on the back of the box when you get a new game. It's your choice if you decide not to read the back or ignore what's on the cover. And again, what is it you expect? During modern times, modern soldiers face off against modern terrorists. Terrorists are not glorified in modern shooters. The word terrorist means a person who uses unlawful violence and intimidation, especially against civilians, in the pursuit of political aims. Say I create a game with two sides to play as, the holy saints and the murderers. Am I gonna need to tell you which side is good and which is bad? Kinda makes you wonder how dumb Extra Credits thinks its audience is.
Even if you put aside all of the people who have had traumatic experiences with these groups, who have lost loved ones to terrorists, or who have had generations of their families wiped out by Nazis, no one should have to put on the costume of an ideology they find abhorrent without actually opting into it in your game.
It's true many innocent people have lost their families to terrorists and so on, but the game doesn't glorify those people. I suppose if you were to say kill someone on the street, or hack their bank account, or fight someone else in a war, I'm being disrespectful to people who have had that happen to them. In most, if not all cases, when the characters being killed are not bad guys, you aren't told it's good that you did that. Game developers know that you know it's fiction, and you can tell the difference between the good and bad sides. And if you don't want to play as a Nazi for whatever reason, then avoid that part of the game or just don't buy the game at all. Everyone is told what will happen in a game and what you'll do in it. If you disagree with what you play as in the game, then simply don't buy it. The video then goes on to say by simply having the option of playing as a Nazi, you're losing your sensibility towards it and normalizing it. We in America already have lost much of the meaning behind the swastika over years because it and the Nazi party simply became a joke. It wasn't video games specifically that caused this, it was just entertainment in general. We all know that acting like a Nazi and doing things a Nazi would do is terrible. We know it is so terrible that the average person would never do anything like that in our modern society without huge backlash. So the absurdity of how people actually listen to and agree with it at some point in almost every circumstance wouldn't now becomes funny. People are either treated as edgy or scumbags for using the swastika unironically because we know in almost every situation the person isn't going to try and seriously do something as terrible as the Nazis, but wants to think they're as terrible simply by using the swastika. Calling those who use the swastika edgy discourages use of it because no one will take you seriously. People who spray paint swastikas and such on walls and other public areas do it to get a response, like drawing a dick on a wall. They do it because they want people to be offended, not because they don't think it's that bad. Swastikas will never have the same power as it did 80 years ago because of our changing culture, not some dumb shooter or some kind of current media.
It means you might not take iron crosses all over a website as a warning sign that you should immediately leave. And if you don't leave, you might start reading and buying into hateful ideas there.
So basically what Extra Credits is saying here is if I play as Alvin from Alvin and the Chipmunks the Wii game, I'm gonna turn into Alvin? Not taking swastikas as a warning sign is one thing. 4chan, Encyclopedia Dramatica, and so on use them for the meme. But having someone be entirely serious in every regard, and if you are concluding after reading it that that person is correct, is a huge leap in logic. You'd have to be a 5-year-old to not know the difference between right and wrong in that scenario. No one is that easily manipulated. If someone happens to be visiting a site with swastikas all over it preaching a message of white supremacy, there's a good chance those people were looking for those sites to begin with. I am being hypothetical in this situation. They said Iron Cross, not swastika, and while it might not seem that much of a difference, there is actually a huge one. The Iron Cross isn't specifically related to Nazism. It was originally a symbol for Prussian rulers and eventually Germans before the Nazi Party took it. After the Nazi Party was taken down, the Iron Cross was reinstated in a different form in 1957. Also, the Medal of Bravery now for German soldiers is still an Iron Cross, just one of a different variation. It is still the symbol for the German army. For Extra Credits, a show known for being meticulously researched to misinterpret a symbol and spread false information is careless and lazy. Back on the idea of playing a game as a Nazi makes you more open to agreeing with Nazi ideology, the exact same message of my son becoming a school shooter thanks to GTA is equally as logically correct. You can't tell me they aren't interchangeable messages, that being the message of games having a bad influence on kids by making them more likely to be killers simply by playing a game, and we should get rid of video games with violence because kids will follow suit. It has been debunked and proven wrong for decades. Extra Credit is using a decades-old argument for a recent video. How much more watered down and PC for the sake of spared feelings can you get?
By the time you've played 100 hours of being a Nazi, their voice stabs become memes and in-jokes with your friends. By the 1000th time you've respawned as a terrorist, you're either celebrating them or making fun of them. Neither of which helps the global crisis we have that takes thousands of lives every year.
It's definitely on the side of making fun of terrorists. No one is going to unironically celebrate being a terrorist. If anything, you're going to laugh at the fact you're able to win as a terrorist because you know how bad they are, or you're going to celebrate your victory, not the terrorist you played as. And of course, if you play a repetitive game long enough, you'll make in-jokes with your friends over it. That happens with every game you play along with friends. What's so bad about that? And ooh, playing video games in which you're a terrorist doesn't help the economy or wars going on. No shit! No fucking shit! I was thinking every time I killed a terrorist in Modern Warfare 2, an actual terrorist would die of a heart attack. I feel dumb having to explain this, but most forms of media don't help solve real-world problems. That's the reason we call it entertainment. It entertains us from what's happening in the real world. The last time I played battleships, I didn't sink spying submarines off the coast of Panama. Last time I played Uno, I didn't take the rate of homicides down to 1%. Entertainment is not meant to solve all of our problems. It's to entertain us. Why are you not getting this? They go on to say we should just up and get rid of terrorists and Nazis altogether. Fuck them. Make the teams red versus blue or allied soldiers in training. That way we'll know we need to be ready for an actual terrorist attack. Call me crazy, but I don't think playing Rainbow Six Siege is going to make us ready to grab an actual weapon to attack actual terrorists in some sort of Red Dawn situation. By saying we can't make games involving Nazis or terrorists as opposing sides to the US or so on soldiers, we're taking a bit of realism from the situation trying to be portrayed. Taking the playability of Nazis and terrorists and so on away limits the spectrum of games we can make and seems restricting game developers who want to make games involving both sides. They also say we should make it so we can play as either Nazis or soldiers interchangeably, something that we already are able to do in Call of Duty, as far as I know from playing at a friend's house, don't quote me on that. They actually suggest artificially extending waiting rooms to make it easier for people to not pick the bad side, which is dumb because the games described are meant to be played fast and easy to enter rather than long and tedious. Not many people are going to care which side they're going to be on to begin with if they can get into a game fast.
And if you're going to say, but we need it for historical reasons, then your game better actually be historical. You can't really just hide behind the fact you called your desert map El Alamein and say, but it's historical. If that were the case, you need your PvP to at least represent real historical events and be a realistic take on those battles. Once you make both sides balanced, it's also no longer historical. And you can't really say that you need Nazis anymore for historical accuracy. Oh, and once you let players get cool weapons that weren't actually at that particular battleground, it's also no longer historically accurate. And you can't declare that your game will suffer if you don't put players in the jackboots of the Third Reich.
Sorry that clip was longer, but I needed to play it all to accentuate my point. Historical accuracy doesn't need to be the strongest in every single World War II game, though they usually are. We don't need to take every single actual battleground from the actual war and meticulously craft every pixel to be the exact same as real life. Having a World War II game, and having the Americans facing the Nazis, is a standard for any game of that genre. It's one of, if not the most basic elements to a game being set in World War II, other than having the Allied forces. For the most basic of historical elements in a World War II game, we need Nazis. It can't be, in 1942 all the British and American soldiers fought against an alien armada that came after the Roswell ship landed. They all had a big fight, but in the end they became friends. The same can be said about modern terrorists in modern games. Getting the two sides in a specific part of history is the most basic necessity to a war-based game. You can't say, we can't have Nazis be in a supposed historically accurate genre if the pistols of the Nazi side do not perfectly match the Astra 600 with 7.65mm ammo. They're getting everything wrong! Oh, and by the way, Call of Duty World War II is considered one of the most historically accurate shooters in recent times, and that has you playing as either Axis or Ally, so that meets your criteria.
Games can do better. And in this particular case, it's not even that hard to do better. And it's no more costly to do better. All it requires is that we in the game industry be cognizant of the world around us and what these symbols we're drawing on mean. That we think as we're building, not just about the game we're working on, but about the world as a whole. If we can do that, we can take a big step forward for the industry. We can stop helping to normalize Nazis.
I hate repeating myself, but the thing is, game designers do think about what exactly they're putting into the games based on historical context and accuracy, and if we learn to be more revolted at the Nazi symbol, edgy people who want to use it will be given much more power, which is exactly what they want. I don't think you know how to practice what you preach though, because this video was misinformed, had outdated arguments that have already been debunked several times over, and had bad research leading to misinterpretation of symbols. If I had any advice to give to extra credits, delete the video, make a public apology, and promise to do more research in the future. I've been Just Stop, which you would have known if you had listened to my intro in the beginning, but I know you still didn't, you filthy casual, and thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.